It's confirmed. We have some breaking news from Brian Windhorst revealing some massive information surrounding Giannis Antetokounmpo and his future in Milwaukee. And for the first time, we have a concrete report, and it's finally leaked and been revealed. What we have all been waiting for. We're going to break down exactly what that report is, discuss what it means going forward, as well as break down some other interesting updates, including another report revealing the Bucks' master plan going forward with this team. So a ton to go over today, folks. Before we get into it all, if you're a part of the percentage who aren't subscribed to the channel, this is the place to be for daily Bucks content. Your guys' support has been unbelievable, so thank you guys for that. And there's a ton of Bucks news coming out, so you want to stay tuned for the daily Bucks videos. Ladies and gentlemen, had a video a couple hours ago on the Bobby Portis situation. Since then, some big news has dropped surrounding Giannis Antetokounmpo and his future in Milwaukee. And of course, most Bucks fans have been hoping that he's going to be staying in Milwaukee. There's still some interesting reporting going on between Shams and the other outlets. We'll have another video coming out on that later tonight. But big news. Big news has just dropped. We're going to dive into the depth chart, everything like that. But just an hour or so ago, hour or two ago, a couple hours at this point of uploading and recording, Giannis Antetokounmpo is staying with the Milwaukee Bucks per Brian Windhorst of ESPN. The league has come to terms with the realization that the Bucks are going to keep him in. Giannis is not going to ask for a trade. So it's been confirmed. Now, the interesting part about this is that, there's been a lot of speculation for the past. This has happened for years now. Every time, whether Giannis is waiting to extend a new contract, whether it's the Bucks trading him. Of course, this all initiated from the Shams Charania report that the Bucks, for the first time, the Bucks and Giannis were interested in exploring other offers and other options surrounding, potentially leaving the team. However, after a few weeks of that, Brian Windhorst, who has been someone who's been saying now for a week or two that he's going to be staying in Milwaukee, has come out and basically confirmed that no other, he's not going to leave. He's not going to be traded to another team. It's just not going to happen. And this is very important. Now, there is still some new reports and some other reports floating from Shams and things like that that are getting a little bit crazy, which we'll dive into later. But there's been a lot of reports now surrounding Giannis staying. Of course, today's the most firm one, which with Brian Windhorst. There's been some other reports from, less notable and less reputable sources saying now for the past week or two that, Giannis is going to be staying and that he's not going to be traded out of Milwaukee, all these different things. And of course, the Shams beef between Giannis and Shams and just Bucks fans and Shams in general has gotten a little bit interesting, especially as of late. But we date back now to a week or so ago when Sleeper Bucks came out and said breaking, Giannis has confirmed his plans to stay with the Milwaukee Bucks. In a recent interview with Eurosports Hoops, Giannis expressed how he hopes to get back to the NBA Finals soon, specifically with the Milwaukee Bucks. And of course, you wouldn't, and there were still some people saying that, hey, even though he said this in his interview, it doesn't mean for sure that he's staying. He just said he wants to get back to the finals and that, they're misconstruing his words, all these different things. But he knows, he's a very smart man. He knows what he's saying when he says things. He knows it in the middle of what the fans view as a critical point in the Milwaukee Bucks franchise. And of course, this offseason, regarding whether or not he stays, if he comes out and says that he wants to, win with Milwaukee, that means that he has probably had those conversations behind the scenes with, John Horst, all these different guys about, the ownership about wanting to stay in Milwaukee. And that ultimately is what ended up happening. Of course, we also had the tweet from Airy Report, who's gotten a bunch of things right in the past. This was from a few days ago. Breaking: Milwaukee star Giannis Antetokounmpo has made it clear he intends to remain with the franchise and does not plan to request a trade. According to people close to him, sources tell me. And of course, these were all things that were brewing before the big bombshell from Brian Windhorst. But even in a video I covered last week about how Brian Windhorst said that at this juncture, other teams around the league are preparing, for the fact that Giannis might stay in Milwaukee and that a trade isn't going to happen. Things can still change, of course, and Shams is still standing by his reporting, which is a little bit interesting. But for Giannis Antetokounmpo, and at least from according to Brian Windhorst, basically what this means is I don't think Brian Windhorst's source is directly from Milwaukee. I think his source is probably from other teams around the league. Other teams have probably called Milwaukee, and Milwaukee's saying, we're going to keep him. We're not entertaining a trade at this time, and that Giannis is not going to ask for a trade. Now, is there a chance where the front office trades Giannis, even though he said he's not going to ask for a trade? There is a chance, albeit a slim chance. I don't think the Bucks, franchise would, the fans would take well to the franchise if they decide to trade their star following a report coming out that he's not going to ask for a trade. Can't imagine that would bode well and go over well for, the Milwaukee Bucks ownership, front office, all those different things. However, in the same vein, we're also talking about how, this is a massive report, right? And we know how good Giannis is. You can even see him tweeting, making some, hints. This was literally just 2 days ago. Most points per game, rebounds a game, assists per game in the finals. He said, let's get back there. And of course, he's wearing Milwaukee Bucks jerseys around. He's still supporting the Milwaukee Bucks. he wants to be, and I think he wants to stay a Milwaukee Buck. And you pair that with the interview that he had. Feel free to check out my video after this one, after you watch this one a full from a few days ago when we covered this report as well. He wants to stay a Milwaukee Buck, right? There's no changing that. I think he does. There was, of course, some conversations according to Shams. Now, again, things can change on a dime, but I think the one of the all-time greats is going to remain a Buck, and there's been some crazy dialogue coming out, which we'll discuss in a future video as well. But I mean, looking at some of his accolades, 2-time most valuable player, 9-time All-Star, 9-time All-NBA, like he is crucial to this team. Now, how the Bucks do with, their depth chart and things like that. I mean, we think back to June 10th. This was 3 days ago from Brian Windhorst. Right now, there is no Giannis Antetokounmpo trade market. There is no Giannis Antetokounmpo trade discussions. He has not asked for it. The Bucks are not looking to trade him. That was 3 days ago. And then today he comes out and confirms that the league has come to terms with the fact that Giannis is not going to ask for a trade. And maybe Brian Windhorst will come out and clarify a little bit more what he means. But it seems now that it is confirmed, folks, and it is official. Giannis is staying in Milwaukee, which is very good. Now, the biggest question mark now is, hey, what do they do from here? How do they build their team around this, player? Because they have a lot of missing pieces now. A bunch of players are free agents. You have Damian Lillard going to be missing next year. A bunch of players UFAs. It is going to be rough. And some reports came out from Windhorst again. Doc Rivers and John Horst have presented plans to keep the Bucks core intact around Giannis Antetokounmpo with the goal of competing for a top 6 playoff spot and the hope that Damian Lillard can return before the end of the season. So this one is extremely interesting as well because we all kind of assume that, I am not going to sit here and factor Damian Lillard into next season's equation. Now, clearly the Bucks are going to do that. I am not going to put hope in the fact that if the Bucks, let's say, play the whole year, they get the 6th seed, right? They avoid the play-in game, and you get into the first round. And then you have Damian Lillard magically come back to the playoffs. I don't think 35-year-old Damian Lillard, who hadn't played with Giannis all year, is going to be able to push them to a title spot. Now, on the flip side, if their goal is to just compete and try to win a round or two, then maybe they can do that. But I don't love this report because it's kind of operating under the assumption that Damian Lillard will save everything. They don't have many alternatives, so I understand why this is happening. But at the end of the day, Damian Lillard is recovering from an Achilles injury. He is 34, 35 years old. They need to do other things. They need to, at this point, assuming they're keeping, Giannis, which all signs point to, you need to make moves. You need to get rid of your first round picks. I mean, you've already got rid of most of them, your second round picks, whatever you have left. Try to get a player that can move the needle a little bit, but can also build around Giannis for the foreseeable future. Not necessarily an old player, but like a young player. I mean, we've heard a lot of names. Also, get a couple cheap guards. I mean, there's been some names thrown out there, Tyus Jones, players like that. Get things done because otherwise, this team is going to be in a very rough spot going forward, especially given the fact that most of their team are free agents. You don't have a center under contract besides Jericho Sims. It's going to be a crazy next few weeks. Let me know down below what your thoughts are on this specific report. Again, it's lending credit to the fact that they might just try to go and win as many games as they can, make some fine tunes around the edges, and then hope that Damian Lillard can be their savior and run it back. With healthy Dame, I don't even know if they had a chance last year or this past year, let alone, with unhealthy Damian Lillard. So things are getting crazy. We'll keep you updated with all of this news. Cheers.